Greetings, legendary readers. Welcome to Larry's Legendary Library, where I explore science fiction, fantasy, and other bits and bobs. Today we're doing something a little dangerous. This is my list of shame. 10 science fiction fantasy books that, given how much I love reading science fiction fantasy, I absolutely should have read these books by now, and somehow I haven't. The Accidental Bookseller commented on one of my posts on YouTube, and so I thought I should not just talk about my list of shame, I should actually publish my list of shame. There's something about public shame that just makes it that much worse. I've read Gene Wolfe, I've read Ursula K. Le Guin, I've read Dune Messiah, and yet these have slipped through the cracks, and so I'm going to count them down for you. Number 10, The Moat in God's Eye by Larry Niven and Jerry Pournelle. Starting strong, this is often listed as the definitive first contact novel. Hard science fiction, alien psychology, political tension, the works. People assume that if you've read Ringworld that you've read this, and I have not. And it's written by a guy named Larry. So I should definitely read this one. The Dispossessed by Ursula K. Le Guin. I've read The Left Hand of Darkness. I loved it. I respect Le Guin immensely, and yet somehow I seem to have skipped what might be considered her most important science fiction novel. This is one of those books that quietly moves you up a tier in the genre conversations, and my absence here is noticeable. The Forever War by John Scalzi, a cornerstone of military science fiction, time dilation, war trauma, direct response to Starship Troopers. If you talk about military science fiction and you haven't read this, people might start to squint at you and start to wonder, and that squint is deserved. I don't even have a copy of it in my library. Number 7, Once and Future King by T.H. White. This is the DNA of modern fantasy. Arthur, Merlin, myth, tragedy, filtered through a deeply human lens. If Tolkien is the mountain, then this is one of the tectonic plates underneath it. Given how much I love philosophical and mythic fantasy, yeah, this one belongs on my list of shame. Number 6, Snow Crash by Neil Stephenson. From what I understand, watching other booktubers, this is either going to be a 5-star experience or a hard bounce. Cyberpunk, pizza delivery, ancient myth, and the metaverse before the metaverse was a buzzword. People don't just recommend this book, they dare you to read it. And I accept the dare eventually, although it's another one I don't even own. Neuromancer by William Gibson. This is the cyberpunk novel, the book that gave us cyberpunk, console cowboys, and an entire aesthetic that still dominates science fiction. Given my reading history, this gap is certainly conspicuous. At some point, you can't keep dodging the book that invented the genre. The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. Beloved, divisive, unfinished. Everyone seems to have an opinion about this book, and somehow I don't, because I haven't even read it. Whether I end up loving it or hating it or somewhat in between, this is a cultural conversation that I should already be a part of, and I'm not yet. The Eye of the World by Robert Jordan. I'll be clear, I don't see myself committing to 14 books, and most of them thick books. But skipping the first book, the Wheel of Time novel entirely, that's genre malpractice. This is one of the most influential fantasy openings ever written. and I have somehow orbited around it without stepping inside. Well, that will end someday. A Game of Thrones by George R.R. Martin. This one might surprise people the most. Yes, I know the story. I've watched part of the TV show. Well, I watched the first season, and then when they killed off Ned Stark, I got mad and quit watching. And no, that doesn't count as reading the books. Love it or hate it, this book reshaped modern fantasy publishing, and not having read it leaves a very obvious hole in my reading history. And number one on my list of shame, The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. And here we are. I'm currently reading Return of the King. I've read The Fellowship of the Ring. I just finished The Two Towers, and I'm currently on The Return of the King. And so I am making my way through Tolkien's Legendarium, and yet I have never read The Hobbit. And that's not a shame, that's a legendary shame. And so there it is, my official list of shame. And now comes the real question, which one do I read first to try to restore my honor? Let me know down in the comments. Also, let me know if there's other glaring omissions that I obviously should have read by now. Until next time, thanks so much for watching. And as always, stay legendary.